Hey guys, it's Daniel from the Back Clinic, and today I'm going to talk about a very controversial topic actually. Something that's usually, how do I put it, well documented in certain instances, yet people continue to do and repeat the same mistake. I know I was one of them back in the days. And this has to do with if you should stretch when you have low back pains, more specifically stretching your low back. And there's been some research on this, and I also have some personal experience on this topic. And what I'd like to start off by saying is that in the majority of cases, stretching works similar to a painkiller, meaning feels good for a moment, and then it's back to where it was, which usually leads to the conclusion maybe I should stretch more because it felt good. But the thing is, you don't really take more and more painkillers when you're in pain. Hopefully not. Well, I understand if you do it initially, but typically what ends up happening when you stretch the tissue is that you have a desensitization of the tissue, meaning the tissue becomes less sensitive, similar to when you take a painkiller actually, meaning that the pain signals are temporarily reduced and you feel better, but then the pain comes back, right? So what should you do instead? Should you just stop stretching and accept the stiffness? Well, it depends. You see, if your back wants to be stiff, it typically has a reason for it. And if you don't know me, the name is Daniel. I run the Back Clinic. It's a global movement designed for people dealing with low back pain, wanting to get back into lifting again. And essentially, here's how I view it. If your back wants to be tight, for the time being, let it be tight. Because the tightness increases stability of the discs. So it's similar to if you have had a spinal fusion, disc fusion surgery done, meaning you're tight, which in turn causes your back to create less so-called micro movements. Now, micro movements are pretty interesting because essentially there are small instabilities in the disc, between the discs, and when you stretch, you're essentially loosening yourself up, which allows for the micro movements to occur more frequently, and thus it becomes a vicious cycle where you feel tightness, you stretch, you temporarily feel better, then you're either back to square one or you feel slightly worse, so you stretch a bit more, you feel either neutral again after a while or slightly worse, and the goalpost for how you feel continues to get moved. Now, when should you stretch your low back then? Is there a reason to even stretch it at all? I'd say yes. Okay, so let's say you started off injured, you healed your injury, and you're still tight. You can't move, but you have function restored. That's when one would start to begin regaining the ability to flex or extend their low back properly, but not before, especially if you're dealing with disc related injuries, which is the most common cause for back pain. Sure, muscle belly tears, like actually hurting the muscle, can happen, but in most cases it's actually the discs, based from working with clients and reading the latest literature on it, and studying under Dr. Stuart McGill. So, given that in mind, what should you do instead? Well, it depends on your issue and exactly what you're dealing with, as you might have suspected. But here's two thoughts of train. that you can work with instead of stretching. And I remember the very first person I ever helped with his low back, he was on the floor stretching his low back, and I told him to immediately stop doing that and do this instead. So what I told him was to stabilize, then mobilize, meaning we would stabilize with training all around his low back, so that the low back wouldn't have to be the primary stiffness generator. If you can generate stiffness around the low back, depending of course on what you're dealing with, typically you're going to be better off than if you focus all your attention only on the low back, even if that's the place where you have pain. So for example, the lateral core, the sides, we introduced some very simple side planks and stabilized the sides. This allowed for less movement back and forth of the hips, which in turn did cause more stiffness, but over time we reduced the stiffness in his lower back because you're generating tightness and stability from other areas surrounding your back. Okay? So basically, if you have a pen or a pencil, now you can imagine that the sensitive tissue is inside the pen, and if you repeatedly try to stretch it, something's bound to begin tearing. But if you stabilize around the pencil, pack on layers of strength, endurance, muscle, even if something has been injured inside, it's more likely to heal quicker with stability over stretching initially, right? That's it for today.